Welcome to the Y'all Need Music podcast. I'm Matt,
Then I'm Jesse.
and we're back for another episode.
Back
Today,
again.
talking about
Music.
I'd say that's probably a pretty good guess on just about every episode.
I was just
Uh,
checking with you.
yeah, no, we're still doing music. That's the
All
thing.
right.
Yesterday, the Country Music Hall of Fame announced their 2024
2024.
class of inductees,
Yes,
and
sir.
some definitely notable folks will be now entered into the Country Music Hall of Fame and have their plaques. I don't know how quick they get them up. If they put them up yesterday, if they were already done prior to that, that'd be a
Yeah, I
good
guess I'm
question for them.
right. Right. If you guys know
So,
the answer, let us know. Because, I
yes,
guess I'm not.
comment. We'll tag them in it. Maybe they'll answer on a post.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
We'll see.
Do you, before we jump right into the inductees, I was kind of doing some Google searches and stuff like that since we have the option of Google these days. Uh, do you know if there's a cap limit on how many people get inducted every year? Is it always the same? I know that there's a panel, judges and you have to get so many votes and everything like that. But I was kind of looking it up, but it seems like the last few years it's been the same. But I didn't dig too deep into
Yeah.
it. And
I don't know that answer either, but I think they do. They do a somebody from each category each
each
year because they're
category,
yeah,
okay,
so they're like last year, no, not last year, would have been the year before last. Um year before last, Keith Whitley was in
yep,
like the singer category. So
right.
like, this year we'll kind of blow the shock if anybody's not seen yet, but that would be Toby Keith this year.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
kind of an
we'll
interesting story on that we're definitely going to touch base on. So,
right, yeah. So we're gonna say that for last because there's a little bit more information to that one and how it all played out.
right.
So, at any rate, they've got recording touring musician category, and that's where we're going to start with this one, and that's James Burton,
Yep.
uh, who's had a really cool career.
Super cool.
Played with some incredible names over the
Yeah.
years.
Out of the three in that are inducted into it, just you know, kind of knew a little bit about him, but dipping into it a little deeper, like he's kind of like he's been around and like you said, very interesting all the artists that he has played with and goes back
Yes,
long time. Back in
right.
the 50s.
So right, and then he played with Elvis
Yeah.
for quite some time.
How cool would that
Uh,
be?
yeah, I mean, just some of the stories. Like I know when I seen Hank Jr. in concert,
Mhm.
and he was talking about being a kid at home, and the likes of people like that just coming by the house. Could you imagine as a kid like
Right.
growing up and having you know Elvis or
Oh,
Johnny Cash stop by the
Elvis, yeah,
house,
they just
like
stopped by, chat with
right,
dad.
yeah, come and hang out,
Yeah, had a beer,
uh
had a smoke.
right.
No,
But
no big deal.
yeah, so after Elvis passed away, he played on albums, for Robert Plant, Frank Sinatra,
Merle
Tina Turner,
Hagar,
even uh, Johnny Cash, yeah, the Hag, just some really huge names in country music and
the
beyond,
monkeys, the
not
monkeys.
not
Yeah,
not just limited to country music, which is why he's certainly been previously inducted into the Rock and Roll
rock and
Hall
roll
of
Hall of
Fame,
fame. Yeah.
and the Musicians Hall of Fame as well. So it's kind of fitting for him to have his place in the Country Music Hall of Fame with his roles there as well, because it wasn't just Elvis or
Right.
Robert Plant. So it's not just rock and roll. There was definitely a ton of country music that he played as
Sure.
well. So um, you
I
know,
wonder,
very,
question for our audience. Who has the most Hall of Fame inductees?
what do you mean?
Like he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame now. He's in the
Oh, so how many different Hall of Fames is somebody in? What's that
right,
record?
right.
I mean,
Because
that's
that's
kind.
three different Hall of Fames right there. Like, how many more could you possibly get into?
Well, there's a singer-songwriters Hall of Fame.
Right.
There's a lot of states have their own,
Okay.
Hall of Fame as well. Not all of them do. So I think
Right.
it could be disadvantaged to some that maybe come from a state that doesn't have one. I mean, some
Gotcha.
towns have their own Hall of Fame, for that
Right.
matter. So, um,
Well, I meant
I
the
think it would,
major ones.
yeah, I don't know. Be worth looking into, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
seeing, um,
One of these days, we're
who.
gonna have our little tech guy here to look this stuff up and put it on the big screen for us, so we know the answer.
Right, yeah, like some kind of teleprompter, we just
Yo,
say we
yeah,
speak
like
it
on
into
a
existence.
right, like on Joe Rogan, every time they're talking about something, they got the one guy in the corner just checking all this stuff, and boom, they pull it up and put it at, hey, look at this YouTube clip, look at this, and
Right.
one of these days.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely, when we wouldn't wanna do it? We wouldn't wanna do it on a straight tequila night.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
yeah.
you like
Okay,
that?
I see what you did there. I see what
Yeah.
you did.
Nice little transition.
There you go.
So if you're a little on the younger side maybe, and didn't catch that reference, that's to one of the other inductees.
They
And
caught the tequila, but they didn't know where we going with it.
right, they're like, I've had some of those before, I don't usually
Right.
remember much of them. No, that's a great, great song
Yeah.
by
Oh, yeah.
John Anderson, who was inducted this year into the Veterans Era category.
Yep.
So uh, you're talking a guy whose career he charted over 40 songs, I think, in his career.
40
Um,
Billboard hits in 4 decades. So, yeah, 40 years and 40 hits on the
yeah,
top
I
Billboard.
mean,
Like,
the
that's
longevity
crazy.
of a career, you know what I mean?
Right.
And there's plenty of people that still love John Anderson and want to see him play. And I don't think that that'll ever change, with the number of songs that he's got, that are hits, you know, just a swangin'. So
Right.
I think even some of the younger people, probably if their parents listen to country music,
Oh,
even,
yeah.
they're going to know several of his songs
If
over the
if
course
they're
of his
on, they're gonna
career.
they're gonna know the songs. They just might not know who it is, but they definitely have heard it before. So, yeah,
Right.
you can't
Right.
have 40 Billboard hits over 4 decades and not have something resonate with pretty much everybody.
Yeah. Well, and while I was doing a little bit, more digging on John Anderson, I found a really cool story.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff,
Right.
right? So John Anderson moved to Nashville um pretty much like right after high school,
Right. Young
right?
age.
And
Yep.
yes, trying to make it in the early 70s, and like so many artists that go to Nashville trying to make it, they work other jobs,
Oh yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Ton of them are servers and in the hospitality industry. Plenty of them
Something
have been
flexible that they can get off.
landscapers. Well, ironically, John Anderson did some construction.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, and
What did he build?
probably one of the coolest projects he worked on
Lineman.
was the the Grand
Grand
Ole
Old
Opry.
Opry.
The
Nice.
Ryman been around too long,
Okay.
but
Nice.
he worked on the Grand Ole Opry House,
No kidding.
prior to it opening up in '74 when they were still, doing the Ryman,
Right.
shows until they moved over to the Opry House. But
Super cool.
when I was doing the digging, I was like, that's pretty awesome. Like
Right.
to go from like roofing, and, on the
Right.
Opry House
Yeah, I
to
built this
being
place and then now I'm gonna go and play in it and be a chart topping
right.
artist.
Yeah. Like, yeah. How many guys, were up there working on the roof of the Opry House with him, and he's like, I'm gonna make it in this industry, and
Yeah.
they're like, you just need to finish making this roof. That's what you need to do,
Right, right. Throw me
kind of
throw me
thing.
another shingle real quick. Come on now.
Right. So I mean, I thought that was like super cool that, I didn't know that about him,
So
prior to
he might have got to sing in the Grand Old Opry before anybody else did. Take his
uh
lunch break inside, get up on that stage and sing a couple of his tunes or something, you know?
yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Uh the circle wouldn't have been there yet at that point, because I think that
Sure.
was one of the last things to go in that building
Right.
process. Um
Well, maybe he
but
wasn't on stage, but he was walking through the halls looking for a bathroom or something,
yeah,
singing a
I'm
tune.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Checking the acoustic levels, you know?
So all these guys, that made it this year, the cool thing about it is that there's still a lot of time before the ceremony for anybody that may want to make plans to be there for it. They do that every year in October, and I don't know the date of this year's.
Oh, like the
Probably
actual in
I probably should have looked that up, but yeah, when they do like the actual induction ceremony or
ceremony.
whatever, that takes place in October every year.
Is
And I
that
know that because of our many trips there in November. I'm always looking at like shows down there throughout the year, like what's
right?
going on. And uh, for whatever reason, I remember stuff like that. Don't ask Megan if I remember shit, because she's going to tell you that I don't. But like, so, sometimes I don't remember the dates, but I was on the phone with somebody earlier today and they were like, there's something coming up at the Opry, is that what you were planning on going to Nashville for? And I said, something coming up at the Opry. I don't recall. And I said, oh, you know what it is? And it's not till April. It's not in March. In April, Scotty McCreery is getting inducted into the Opry.
Oh, okay.
And as soon as I said that, he was like, yeah, that is what it was. He's like, I didn't know that other than they announced it, because they were just down there this last weekend. And he's like, I wouldn't have known that other than they announced it, while we were
While you're
there.
down there, right?
And he's like, how do you know that? It's like, well, I spend a lot of my spare time, looking at musical stuff in general.
So
And
you look at
follow a
that
ton of
stuff, and then when Megan was saying you don't remember, that's like birthdays, anniversaries, and stuff
no,
like
I
that.
remember those things.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I just don't remember when she tells me something.
gotcha.
She'll say,
Like
well, I
pick up
told you
groceries,
we were doing this. And I'm like, nah, I don't think you ever told me that. I was probably reading a music article or
something about
something.
that.
And that's
Yes,
probably why I didn't remember anything that she said about it.
I told you this. Did it have anything to do with country music? Well, then I wasn't listening.
Was I reading an article about country music at the time, or an artist, or was I looking at concert dates? Because if so, you can't talk to me during those times. Like, that's not fair to do.
Right, right.
My mind is like right here, at that point, and that's where it's staying. I'm not not deviating from it. So,
Don't
wait till I'm
distract me while
done,
I'm
or
looking
say,
at
hey,
country music stuff.
right.
This is
So
my
anyway,
alone
back
time.
to the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
Did you see too?
going down the rabbit hole again.
Right. Staying on John Anderson really quick too. When we were talking about the different Hall of Fames and stuff, they were saying that it's like real close to the 10-year anniversary that he got inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so he already got that Hall of Fame 10 years ago, and now he's getting the full on Hall of Fame. So pretty sweet,
Yep.
very deserving, that's for sure. So,
Absolutely. And then,
and
you
for you
know,
guys that don't know, get on to Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you listening to. Look up John Anderson. Shoot, probably the first 5 songs you listen to, you're being like, oh yeah, oh duh, yep, know him.
yeah. Yep. And
Probably the
and
first
if you
10
listen
songs.
to those, if you listen to those and you're not like, "Oh, I know who that is," you should probably take yourself outside and smack yourself around, and then go back and listen to them and get to know that music for sure.
Yep. Dude kind of looks like
Hey,
Sam Elliott to me. He's got like
uh,
the white hair, the white mustache, kind of that
some of
cowboy rugged look.
some of the pictures I seen of him, you know who it made me think of? Jackson Dean.
Oh
I
yeah.
felt like their look
Yeah.
was
Very
similar.
similar.
Obviously, Jackson Dean's younger, than
Right.
John Anderson is, but there was a similar vibe that I got
Right.
off of their swagger, if you will.
Right. Right.
Um,
It's just rugged and like full on, country music.
yeah, you could throw them in an episode of Yellowstone, and they wouldn't even have to visit the costume trailer.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. People
So
would be like, "Can I borrow that for the next scene?"
yeah,
They don't
sir,
got to
you need to
get they
turn
don't
the
got to get
jacket
out
back in.
right. They don't got to get outfitted by Tecovas and Filson and everything. They already got all their own stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not turning this jacket in because this is mine. I wore it here.
Right. Excuse me, sir. No, no,
So
no clothes off set. No, this is mine.
right. So last but not least in this year's class, certainly is the great Toby Keith.
Yes, sir.
And he was inducted into the modern era artist category.
Yep.
Um, and the craziest thing about that is he barely made it in.
Right.
And I know
Yep.
some of you are hearing that and thinking, like, what do you mean Toby Keith barely made it in?
Right.
Uh, so the Country Music Hall of Fame has rules
Yep.
as far as the voting and who can be voted on each year.
Right.
Um, similar to, sports and their Hall of Fames, they have rules,
Right.
as far as when you're eligible to be on a ballot or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're by their rules, you're not eligible to be inducted into the Hall of Fame on the year that you die.
Right. Within a
That's
within a
a
year
big
after your
no-no.
death. Yeah, within a year after your death.
Right.
And the reasoning they do that is to avoid like the sympathy votes and like, oh, they passed away, so let's put them in. So they don't want that.
Right.
They want the integrity of the whole institution to not just rely on something like that. Like Vincent Van Gogh didn't become famous until after his death. They didn't want anything like that.
Right. So, but ironically, in this case, the ballots went out in like December for
Mm-hmm.
voting, and votes were coming in through January, and it was 3 days
3 days.
prior to his death that the final vote tally was counted, and he was obviously going to make it into the hall.
Right.
And I don't know if you're aware of this, but um, they made the call to him uh,
Oh, I was wondering
on
that.
on the day that he actually died.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
so the day that he died, eh, and it was literally, by a couple different accounts that I was able to find out, it was somewhere in like the 2 to 3 hours
So
before he passed away.
he received the call though?
It wasn't clear whether he personally took the call or whether it was a family
Or
member that took the call, but
okay.
I'm going to choose to believe
Yeah,
that
like
even if he wasn't totally with it, still that he heard, the news before he
Yeah.
passed. And that
That's just
I'm
a
gonna
cool
stick with
story.
that.
Yeah.
Like, that he at least heard it, even if he was, you know, in a bad place at that
Right.
point, which, I recall when my grandfather passed away of cancer that last day, there was moments of clarity, but then there was a lot of just like sleeping.
Right.
Um, and I think that even when people are at that point where they're sleeping, I think that they still hear their loved
Right.
ones talking to them and kind of know
Yeah.
what's going on, even if they aren't really fully able to respond to it.
Right.
And so, in my world of optimism, Toby Keith knew before he passed
So
on that he made
so
the Hall.
if he wasn't a happy person, it's kind of like one of those feel good story. Like he died happy knowing that, you know, got the
All the
top,
work that he had put
yep,
in, he
top
made.
honor. Boom. I got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm at peace. I can go now. And so, yeah, cool story.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
I mean,
sweet.
and think about that for a minute though, that 3 days, you know, isn't much. Typically, especially with somebody that's got terminal cancer, right?
Sure.
They don't know when you're going to go.
Right.
They'll say, it might be 3 days, might be 30 days.
Right.
We
Might be
just really
three
don't know.
hours. Right. Yeah.
Um, right. And so had, uh, that voting cutoff been different, or had he died a few days earlier, if he would have died before the vote count was finalized and tallied,
Mm-hmm.
he would not have been eligible till next year.
Right.
Well, really, it would be the year after that because they would start the voting
Right.
too soon, even to make
Too
it for
soon.
next year.
Right.
Um,
Right. It has to be within a
so
full
it's
calendar year of your death. So
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy to me how that played out, and for as much as I follow music in general, I don't think I've ever heard another story like that where somebody was just kind of like right on the cusp of eligibility, especially when you're talking a name like Toby Keith that regardless, I mean, if nothing else was going on, he's 100% making it in,
oh yeah.
as soon as he's
Oh,
eligible. I mean,
right.
there's just guys like that, right? That
Oh yeah.
there's no doubt in your mind that they're going to the Hall of Fame
Right.
uh because of their careers and their contributions to, the music as a whole,
Right.
that somehow a technicality could keep you out for a while,
Mm-hmm.
uh purely based on dying.
Right. Yeah, he
Like
he
that it
probably should have been inducted a few years prior, just with the lengthy career and the number of hits that he had, but just his impact on country music, as a whole. So yeah, I mean, to be that close to it, but yeah, like you said, I mean, there was no doubt that he was getting in. Probably should have
right.
been a few years prior to this that he should have been inducted in. So
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, right, is when you're talking that modern era artist, you
hmm
know, only one person's getting in that category each
right,
year.
true,
And so, you're battling it out every year when it comes down to voting with the who's who of
right,
country music. And all of those people are still so fresh. I think sometimes maybe it's a little bit easier in that veterans category. If you've stayed relevant for 40 years like John Anderson, maybe
right,
is a little bit easier than somebody else that's a veteran that didn't have that length of a career. But when you're looking at modern era, you're talking the likes of everybody who's still out there doing
right,
their thing and making great music.
right.
So,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, and especially as popular as country music has become in the modern era to such a bigger fan base. Not that country music hasn't always been super popular, but the fan base is definitely tenfold probably what it was back when John Anderson was kicking around. And so yeah, to get that modern artist that's
it's gonna get harder and harder, I feel like, 10, 15 years from now, um,
oh,
with there
absolutely.
being so many people in the country music scene,
Right.
now and going forward, that it's gonna be a bigger and bigger struggle to
Mhm.
decide, like, who who are we gonna pick this year?
Right. Did
So,
did when we were at CMA Fest last year, what was the award that they gave Alabama on stage? That wasn't the
oh, that was a career,
like a lifetime achievement
oh,
award
what
type stuff.
yeah. Yep. I don't remember exactly what award that was, to be honest with you. Um, but we can
I know
find
it
that
was
out.
only wasn't it Alabama, Taylor Swift, and like one other artist, like, were the only ones to ever receive that. Oh, I finally got the list of
The CMA Pinnacle Award
okay. Yep.
is what that was.
Yep.
Um, and let's pull that up and see. Um,
On a real quick note
uh,
here, I got pulled up like the last well, I got everybody pulled up here, but last year, Tanya Tucker,
yep.
and we seen her at CMA Fest, right?
Yep.
Yep, she came out. So she got inducted with Patty Loveless last year. 2 years prior was when Keith Whitley went in and Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yep.
That was another one that, was back around during the Elvis era, Jerry Lee Lewis. So Ray Charles
Yep.
was the year before. 2020, the great Hank Williams Jr.
Yeah, I remember there was a big effort to get him in
to
the
get
hall,
him in.
as well as Keith Whitley. I actually know a guy that uh, filmed a huge part of a documentary that was a major factor in getting Keith Whitley into the hall.
Okay,
Um, that's really cool. Maybe we'll
gotcha.
share that on the page as well in the future. But yeah, that Pinnacle Award is you know giving out or given out for people that have had like incredible, as they put it, significant in industry achievements at levels unique for country music. So you have to have been like massive record sales,
Yeah,
concert, performances, stuff like that. So the
right.
three other artists that have been awarded that in the past is Garth Brooks, Taylor Swift, and Kenny Chesney.
Yep.
So that's not an award that's given out every year.
No.
That's kind of given out when
Once you hit
you've
that level.
right.
Right. And yeah,
So
Kenny Chesney and Garth Brooks, from, back in the day. Well, I shouldn't say back in the day, but yeah, definitely they were, you know, platforms. But yeah, for Taylor Swift, who is relatively new to country, I mean, not new, but her album sales and her concerts and tours and everything like that, yeah, she just skyrocketed
yeah,
far
she
leaps
has
and
that
bounds.
international.
Right.
Yeah, she's got that international like stardom that few country artists, have ever even come close to.
Right.
Which is certainly a factor in
Oh yeah.
why she was one to receive that award. Um,
Yeah, I've talked
so
to a few people that
yeah,
have gone to like the Taylor Swift concerts, and they say that it's like a full experience. Like it's 5 hours of, you know, outer body experience is how they describe it and everything like that. So pretty crazy that someone, I would say within, I mean, what, 10 years ago she came out roughly,
oh, probably a little longer
a little
than
longer
that.
than that.
Yeah, I question my memory a lot because of the COVID
You
years
should.
really throw me for a loop,
Oh, I thought it was
where
because you
it's
were
like,
getting
oh, this
old.
was just like, no, that's not a thing.
Oh,
Um, but it's like, oh, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's like, no, we were in the middle of COVID then, so it was like a
Right.
year and a half before the oh, so
Before
it was
that.
like 4 or 5 years ago, like we lost a whole stretch of time, in that era,
That was
that,
one
throws me
crazy daylight savings time.
yeah, something like it was a leap year.
It was probably kind of, we've talked about when Matt and I started this podcast. We started another podcast, Y'all Need Help podcast, and how we got the basis of that podcast was, and then how this one kind of sprung from there was we would be in Studio South or Studio North, which are both of our man caves, and we always called it like the time vortex of where we'd be having some bourbon and just sitting there shooting the shit and talking, and we'd look at the clock, oh, okay, it's midnight. Next thing you know, you look down, it's only been 20 minutes, but it's been really like 4 hours, and we're like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's that whole time vortex. So COVID was kind of like that 3 year time vortex right there. So
Yeah, the problem is like our times when we get together and those happen, we're enjoying ourselves. I don't
right.
really remember enjoying myself during COVID. Like
Right.
it was bad for me because I love live music so much, and that was not a thing.
Right.
And so fortunately, so many folks in the music industry were doing lives on their
Lives.
social medias.
Yep.
And so I'd just be sitting around the house like, oh, Jake Owen's doing a live today, from his little bar. I'm gonna
Mhm.
watch Jake Owen live. Or
Yep.
that was around the time that I really got hooked on Dylan Carmichael. If you don't
Mhm.
know him, check him out.
Yep.
I had heard him prior to that, but he did a bunch of lives during that time, and I was watching, all of those. And
Yeah.
so uh that's kind of what got me through, was kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
feeling like, well, I'm sort of
Sorta
getting
still
my
there.
music.
Right.
You don't get the same feel obviously with the crowd and everything else, but
Do you
yeah,
know do you know who, well, at least the first one that I knew of and the first one that I watched that did that live stream and that live performance, which you're not gonna particular care for, but Ryan Upchurch, Nashville local, he had Bridgestone Arena scheduled for like a week after the full on shutdown. And he paid out of pocket to, because they canceled all the shows and they canceled everything. And he actually paid to rent out Bridgestone and still do his same concert, and then he just streamed it live for everybody. So that was kind of like, at least
I
for
think I
me,
remember that.
that was like the first one that I saw where I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, and that was back when the shutdown happened and they made it way more terrifying. Like, don't even, step outside to like take a breath of air, so you've been locked
I feel
down
like
for,
somebody else did that too.
yeah, yeah, that,
I feel
and
like
it could have
there was
been,
somebody else that did Bridgestone after him, I think.
yeah, it could have
For
been, but I
some
know
reason my
that it
memory's
was,
telling me that.
yeah, I knew that it was the first one for me because I was excited that he was playing there because I'm a fan of his, and got to watch that, and that was really cool sitting on the couch, and it was like, cranked the volume as loud as we could, like we were actually at the concert right there, and
Right.
they didn't just like show just him on the stage. They kind of like moved around and like walked around the arena a little bit. Granted, when they'd show everybody in the crowd, which was just like his friends and family, everybody had masks on and everything. And, but they kind of like walked around like up and down the catwalk, kind of like they would at a concert. So that was pretty
Right. Well,
cool. So,
I remember the mask thing being an issue when we went to Nashville in 2021.
hmm,
And we went to the Opry, which I generally do when we go down there to catch at least one show.
yeah.
And we had to wear masks for the Opry. Maybe that was in 2020. That might have been 2020, not 2021. Um,
Yeah, it might have been because you usually go down there for like Thanksgiving time, right?
yeah.
So, I
Yep.
mean, and the shutdown was like mid March, right about now. So,
Yeah, I'm
it
trying to
might have
remember if
had
that
some
was
restrictions by, or lifted some of the restrictions by then. So
Yeah, and ironically, we had COVID in October, and so there was like no real concern with going there and being around
Right.
crowds because it was
Right.
like, well, you can't get it again yet. It
I'm
hasn't
already
been long
immune to
enough,
it.
so
Right.
we're good for the time being. But any rate, yeah, that's I remember like Ashley McBride like sitting on her couch, playing the
Yep.
guitar and doing lives in her living room, and
Yeah.
uh, it was definitely a different time, and I'm so incredibly thankful that we're past that and can
Oh
go
yeah.
back to concerts again. So before
You were
we
upset with that concert though, right?
which one?
The Ashley McBride one.
Only because I wasn't there with her.
Well, you were hoping that she would have done it in the bedroom instead of the living room. You might get a peek of where she sleeps at nighttime, so you can imagine.
Right.
For you guys
Um,
that don't know, Matt has a little obsession with Miss McBride. So,
it's gorgeous. So yeah, but no,
real quick, I got trivia for you
I don't even
too.
remember where I was going before. You keep real quick and we're way off topic. Real quick, what now?
Well, this is back on topic. Do you know
Oh,
who
okay.
was the first inductee to Country Music Hall of Fame? Ooh, did I stump him?
Oh
Doesn't happen
no,
too
I do
often.
know who it is.
I mean,
Uh,
there was three
give
people that year, and yeah, going back through the list, um, in the earlier years, there was only three is the most that have been inducted at a time, but there was a few years that there was only like one or two. Don't you go looking it up on your Google machine?
I'm I'm not. I'm trying to remember because when we went to the Hall of Fame, they're all kind of in order,
Yep,
and I'm
yep.
trying to like try and picture who it was,
I'll give it.
and
It's
no.
1961. 1961 was the year.
Mm, yeah, I
Come
don't
on,
know.
this is just
I'm
dead
I'm
air right
drawing a
now.
blank.
Come
Well,
on.
that's the problem is I'm drawing a blank, and that's that's gonna waste time.
Right. All right. All right.
Who was it?
Old Hank.
Hank Senior.
Yep. Yep. Hank Williams, Fred Rose, and Jamie Rogers were in 1961. So
That's pretty fitting, for Hank Senior to be
the first,
the
right.
first one. Yeah.
Yep. 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 I
So,
thought that was cool. So,
well, before we wrap this episode up, which we've got to do here pretty promptly, um, we've been kind of teasing uh, somebody that we're going to be having on the podcast,
yes,
and
sir.
it is officially official. So
Officially official.
we're uh, we're about well, we're 2 weeks out from that episode going to be airing because we're doing it next Tuesday.
Okay.
We'll be
Yep.
recording that one. So um, maybe if we put a major crunch on it, we might get it out next week. But I want to make sure it's done right. So I'm going to say 2 weeks to play it safe that one will air. And if you guys are lucky, 1 week.
If we can get our
So
tech guy, going on the ball.
yeah, and our tech guy sucks. We've established that before. So, without further ado, the artist that will be joining us on a very upcoming podcast is none other than 2023 Tractor Supply emerging artist Drew Hale.
Yes, sir.
So uh, Drew Hale is not a Traverse City native, but about as close as you can get to without being from there. Originally from El Paso,
I can't
uh,
claim him
but
just yet, though. So,
but has been in Traverse City for I want to say like 20-25 years
yeah.
at this point. So he's definitely a long time transplant Michigan artist,
Yep.
originally hailing from the Lone Star State. So,
Yeah. If you guys didn't
as you
see the
guys are
little,
hearing this, if you're not, oh, I think he froze up, and I was stopping to let him talk.
oh,
So if you're not familiar with Drew Hale, make sure you give him a good listen on Spotify, Pandora, whoever your streaming
streaming
provider is
service.
that you
Yeah.
listen to. Check him out. Go give him a follow on his socials.
Definitely
And
has a very cool sound. A lot of really cool songs. They're just things you can kind of jam to and vibe to. It's just going through the whole playlist. It's just kind of, you're like, makes you happy, just listening to it.
Yep. So the other thing we're going to ask of you guys, and you can do it or not do it. It's you know fairly
Completely up
irrelevant, I
to
guess, in the
you.
grand scheme. But if you are a Drew Hale fan, listen to him in the past, and there's something that you're dying to know, right?
Yep.
Go ahead and shoot us a message or comment on Facebook or something. And if there's a bunch of them, we'll probably have to narrow it down and probably pick
Right.
a couple of like
Couple
the
of
cooler
them.
questions, because we've got some great things that we want to talk about with them as well. So
So if it's not a cool
give
question, then we don't get to answer
right, yeah,
it.
basically. So yeah, if you've got a
So make them
question though,
nice and good questions, nice and
yeah,
juicy.
we'll try and get to them. We've got some kind of deeper stuff that we're going to talk about. I think that all of you are going to be pleasantly surprised by that interview and the podcast as a whole. So, on that note, we're going to get
Yeah,
wrapped
and if
up for this episode.
real quick, if you guys checked out the Facebook page, we kind of on the last episode we kind of gave a teaser and said we were in communication with some booking, trying to get that all lined up. And just so happened that day was the day that we posted when we seen him down in Nashville last year at Old Red. He played down there, and we got to go down there and see him and meet him. So there's a picture on the Facebook with him. So we
Yep.
got to hang with him a little bit, and can't wait to podcast with him and dig a little deeper.
Yep. So, until next time, we're going to get off of here for now. And we'll
Check us
see
out on
you
the Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music,
YouTube,
wherever. YouTube. Give us a like,
and
follow, and you
invite your
guys.
friends.
Oh yeah, invite the friends. Check it out. Yeah, it's
There's
going to be a big one here in a couple weeks. So make sure you guys are all, you know, all your friends and everybody like that knows what's going on. So
Yeah. So we will catch you guys next time on
y'all need music podcast.